Nathan, are we ready?
Recording in progress.
All right, it's 6:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a city council meeting. Whoops, Bill. That's all right. This is a city council meeting for the city of Fairway, Kansas. It is Monday, June 10th, 2024, 6:30 p.m. Nathan, do you have any announcements? Nope, neither do I. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a proclamation this evening that I'd like to read into the record for Pride Month. Whereas our nation was founded on the principle of equal rights for all people, and whereas everyone should be able to live without fear of prejudice, discrimination, violence, and hatred, and whereas discrimination in all forms is unjust and the city of Fairway, Kansas strives to be a welcoming and inclusive community, and whereas June is recognized as the LGBTQ Pride Month, and whereas the governing body of the city of Fairway, Kansas, on the 12th day of August 2019, declared it with resolution number 2019H to be the policy of the city to reject discrimination of any kind and to respect the inherent worth of every person. Now therefore, I, Melanie Hepperly, Mayor of the city of Fairway, Kansas, do hereby proclaim June 2024 as Pride Month in the city of Fairway, and I urge all residents to respect and honor our diverse community. Dated this 10th day of June, 2024. All right, next on the agenda are the monthly reports of the standing committees. Consolidated Fire District Number 2, Chief Chick is not here this evening, and I believe he is now sending his reports on a quarterly basis? Okay. Admin and Finance, Nathan?
The Admin and Finance Committee did meet, sorry.
That's all right, we can hear you.
On May 29th. We discussed the proposal that is on the agenda for this evening from Federico and Durst for lobbying and governmental service for the 2025 and 2026 session. They will be here for that agenda item to answer any questions the governing body may have on that. The rest of the meeting was spent discussing the 2025 draft general fund budget. Each of the department heads gave a review of the significant changes that they are proposing for 2025. And then we discussed, lastly, claims and appropriations, cash flow and sales tax. And sales tax came in above budget at $215,000 for the month of May. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Nathan? Okay. Anything else, Nathan? Did you do them both?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Police Chief?
Thank you. So in May, I want to highlight a couple of the activities that we had. Unfortunately, the ones that I want to highlight are both pursuits, but they ended with no one hurt. However, the first one I want to mention is we chased an individual that committed an aggravated battery in Shawnee and continued eastbound, and we picked up that vehicle within the city limits of Fairway and then began pursuing it. Because of the time of day, it crossed over into state line, and we decided not to continue. That individual wrecked shortly after we discontinued. We rolled up a little bit, made a couple turns and rolled up on that car. We found the car wrecked out on Ward Parkway, the wrong way, I think. And there was an individual outside of the vehicle or around the car. Our officer stopped and talked to that guy, the individual that was out, and the person driving the car, the original car, carjacked that individual, and then he got in a different car, obviously, and left the scene, but we were not in the area at that time. The next one that I want to mention is we assisted an outside agency pursuit of another vehicle that was taken in a carjacking just a couple days prior. That vehicle, again, drove very erratically and reached speeds over 100 miles an hour. We discontinued on that as well. It was occupied 5 times by who we believe are juveniles. Today, I'll probably mention it next month as well. Today, we pursued another vehicle off of Shawnee Mission Parkway in Mission. It cut through the yard at the house on the corner there and continued eastbound. Went into Missouri, drove the wrong way on Ward Parkway, and then cut back over. We discontinued when we hit state line. And then later to find out the individual driving, we developed a suspect. We saw who was driving it. That was a stolen car, and the individual driving it, we believe, also had hit a Prairie Village police car months prior, and also had committed first-degree burglary in Kansas City, Missouri as well. So again, I'm just mentioning those. Those are some of the things that we did as far as our enforcement goes within the last month. The other thing I want to mention is, in addition to the monthly report, we included kind of a summary of Police Week, and I wanted to thank everyone again for allowing us to do that. It was an amazing opportunity for us to be in Washington, hear the President speak, and be with Hannah to honor Jonah. Also in Topeka at the state capitol. It was an honor to be there as well. Jonah's name is on a memorial in Topeka at the Capitol, and then also at the Fallen Officer Memorial in Washington, D.C. So thank you. Other than that, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions for the chief? Thank you, Chief. Bill, Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor. I will also let my report stand as submitted. A couple things I'd like to highlight is we were inundated with storms in May. We were actually hit by a confirmed tornado, or at least it terminated in the southern end of Ward 3. And if you drove the area, you could tell that that area was the by far hardest hit from the first storm. Then the following weekend, Mother Nature, being as rude as she is, decided to hit us again. All in all, we finished collecting brush curbside Friday, and all in all, we had probably 100 to 110 cubic yards of brush, compressed brush, and that's what we picked up ourselves. Our contractor picked up probably a couple more loads on top of that. The guys really worked hard to get through and get things out in a timely manner, on top of mowing, weed eating, and all of that stuff as well. And their idiot boss decided to leave on vacation to boot, so didn't help things any. But other than that, I will let my report stand as submitted, and the construction portion of our CIP for the year is done. We're now to the pretty stuff, the sod that obviously, if anyone has drove down 62nd Street, did not take very well, so all the sod on 62nd was rejected. They replaced the sod on 61st Terrace, but there's still a lot of dressing up stuff they need to do there as well. But we're working on a punch list. This will probably take a few weeks to get everything rounded up, but the hard portion is done. And Bryce can attest that it didn't take them very long to find the additional parking along 62nd Street, and it's full every time I drive by, so it's being utilized. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions for Bill? Oh, thank you, Bill. Bryce, Parks and Rec.
Yep, thank you. I wanted to highlight that we had an article, and I sent you guys an email about this, but we had an article in Landscape Architect, their March issue, and highlighted Catherine Lyon Flora Park. And we've framed that article, and we're going to hang it up in front of City Hall here on the walls. But just a very neat thing for it was Carissa from Landwork Structures or Studios that was the architect on that, and she submitted that to the magazine, and they were able to publish it. So we were highlighted on their website and everything. So pretty neat for a small little fairway to be included with a bunch of big cities as well. So pretty cool. Just wanted to update you. So the pool has opened. We're good to go there. It's been beautiful out there, and we're busy, but that's not anything unusual. From my submission of my report, we've added 105 memberships since that time, so we're creeping up on last year's overall total. So I anticipate we'll surpass 2,000 members this year, which is another great feat there. But so far, everything's been very well. The screens have been well received, and it helps out with the lines that we have at the snack bar and the front desk and everything. So thank you so much for allowing us to install those. But I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Bryce?
Bryce?
Yeah.
Any further development on the issue at Catherine's Park?
So the issue we've been having people play in the waterfall at Kathy's Park, which, I mean, you install something with water, it's probably going to have people in it eventually, but they're just not reading the signs that tell them not to do that. So an email should go out tomorrow morning about that to all our residents and anybody that's signed up for our email program as well. We do have a camera out there that's pointing towards the waterfall now that I sent you a picture, that you and David, a picture of the children, the 6 children that were inside the pool, the waterfall. So we're trying to mitigate that. But if you have any chance to talk with the residents that love Kathy's Park, let's keep maybe work that into the conversation about please stay out of the water and let's keep Kathy's Park as beautiful as it can be. Yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you, Bryce. Monthly reports of the special committees, tree board, Bill.
No report.
Next is the public comment for the consent agenda items only. I will read those into the record. A is approved minutes of the previous regular city council meeting. B, approved claims and appropriations. Ordinance number 1806 for May of 2024. Nathan, do we have anyone online? Nope. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience here who would like to come to the microphone for public comment on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, I will close that portion of the public comment. Consent agenda are items determined to be routine enough to be acted on in a single motion. However, this does not preclude discussion. If a council member requests, an item may be removed from the consent agenda for further consideration and separate motion.
Mayor?
Jenna?
Oh, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve both items A and B on the consent agenda. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Moving on to new business. Item A, consider agreement with Lamp Ryerson, Inc. for NPDES compliance services. Bill?
Thank you, Mayor. We entered into this agreement last year for the first time with Lamper Nearson for our NPDES compliance service. And it was very refreshing with the new format to have someone assemble a report to hand over to KDHE that was in full compliance. We got a letter just a few weeks ago that saying that we were in compliant with the point system required for the year. So this agreement, I believe, has bared fruit. We entered into it with Roland Park and Westwood, and as you can see from the estimate, we're getting a multi-city discount. So it's one of those things that we try and do here to, get an economy of scale whenever we can on like items like this. But I think it worked out very well. It was money well spent last year, and going forward, it's going to get more and more difficult. So this is a very helpful resource for us to have, especially whenever it's one company that's servicing all of us. We're able to tag team those events together. Like one of us, whenever they had the cleanup day at the Indian Mission, Westwood and Roland Park could take credit for that. And then when Roland Park had their cleanup effort, we could both take credit. The other two cities could take credit for that. And all we have to do is advertise on our end, but it gets out to our residents, so it counts. So it's very helpful.
Okay. Any discussion, council, on this item? All right, I will open it for public comment. Anyone in the audience wish to discuss this matter? Okay, we'll close public comment, and I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we consider and approve the agreement with Lamp Renderson for NPDES compliance services.
Second. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agreement. All those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Item B, consider agreement with Federico Durst for lobbying and governmental affairs services. Nathan?
Thank you, Mayor. We discussed this at length at the Administration and Finance Committee back on the 29th. We engaged with Federico Durst for the 2024 session. We got in late, it was mid-February, before we engaged them, but they helped represent our interests regarding the bills related to the Shawnee Indian Mission. Recognizing that that might be, we'll need some ongoing support there. They have submitted a proposal that would cover not only the mission bill, but any legislation that could impact the city. They will represent our interests in Topeka. And so they are here this evening. If they would like to step forward to the podium, they can introduce themselves, and I let them know that they would be subject to any questions of the governing body this evening. So,
If you'd please state your name for the record.
Well, good evening, Mayor. John Federico,
John.
Federico Durst Consulting. We'll let everyone introduce themselves. We'll give you a brief overview if you'd like, and happy to take any questions.
Mayor, members of the council, Stephen Durst with Federico Durst Consulting.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Mihailo Ilic with Federico Durst Consulting.
Short one.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Liz Sosa with Federico Durst Consulting.
Welcome to all of you. Council, do you want to give an overview first, or?
Well, I can tell you that we're missing one other member of our advocacy team. His name is Adam Lusker, a former Democratic legislator. But this, for the most part, is the team that lobbies in the State House. The proposal we put for you was to lobby on this issue, but then also provide monitoring services so you're a little bit more connected as to the shenanigans that are going on in Topeka. I've just finished up, or I will next week after the special session, my 31st year. Stephen has 10 years under his belt, and these guys have significant experience in the State House. We represent a variety of clients, and the monitoring services that we provide, we have discovered has become very invaluable for folks that do want to stay connected, that want to get ahead of some of the issues. Last year, there were over 650 bills and resolutions that were introduced. So rather than just submit a proposal to you that handled just the advocacy on that one single issue, we thought, let us show you the value in providing comprehensive monitoring services in all committees in the State House that deals with interests that the city of Fairway may have. As part of that, we would provide legislative counsel to you on how to tackle some of those issues, as well as political reports. And it should be a very interesting year politically here in Kansas. Don't know if you have anything else to add. By way of experience, Stephen and I are both attorneys, and we represent a wide variety of politics in our office and geography in the off-season. Liz is out in Garden City and splits her time between Topeka. Stephen's a Johnson County resident. I'm Lawrence. Mihailo has ties back to Manhattan. And as I said, Adam Lusker is down in southeast Kansas. And in a relationship business, we found that that's a pretty good recipe to make sure we get a good handle on what's on people's minds that are setting policy in the State House.
Mayor, the only thing I would add is in the short amount of time that we were engaged with you all for the 2024 session, we greatly appreciate your leadership, Nathan's leadership, we have become very engrossed and obsessed with this issue that is taking place for the city. I feel like we're very well versed. We were all out at the mission recently, so we were able to see with our entire staff what that was about. And again, I feel like we are very well steeped on that particular issue. The last thing I'll say is I have 2 very young children. We visit the park frequently, and we do not play in the waterfall, so.
Well, thank you for the kind words. Your whole team was very, very helpful to Nathan and I and the city of Fairway. We kept the council apprised as we were going through the situation, but there at the end, I don't think we could have accomplished what we did without you. I mean, there were so many things going on, and you alerted us to when we needed to be in Topeka, which otherwise we would not have known. So thank you very, very much. Questions from council or comments you'd like to ask? Joe?
Not a question, but I appreciate you bringing your team here so we can put a face to the product, and we appreciate your coming.
We're not much to look at. Job done.
Yeah, Jerry?
Jerry Williams, Ward 2. Thanks for coming, and thanks for the work that you helped out with on the Indian mission. Going forward, I'm not very familiar with lobbying. I hear about lobbying, but is your work more proactive, or will it be more proactive for the city, or is it mainly reactive based on what you hear in the session?
That's a great question, actually, and it depends on the issue. We spend a lot of time making sure that we're not surprised at things, but you still can't help it where someone would offer an amendment, or they will take a bill dealing with A, and they will strip it out and insert language that deals with B. And the fact that we have, at any given time, given your lobbying team, and we employ anywhere from 5 to 7 different law clerks and legislative clerks to help us monitor these committees. For the most part, we are ahead of the game. We also spend an inordinate amount of time getting to know legislators and keeping our ear to the ground. This really isn't a sales pitch, but this is what helps you be successful up there, is making sure that you're not surprised and you're not hearing things second and third hand, that you are actually in the building paying attention to what's going on so you can report back to your client. Then you can tell us what's important and what's not. As far as lobbying goes, I tell the story all the time that my mother asks me, what do you do? Are you a lawyer or are you not a lawyer? I said, I'm a lobbyist, and she doesn't understand. And all you do is talk to people. There's nothing sinister about it. It's an education process. You develop your best case based on the facts, and you go talk to people, and you try to appeal to them to either support a bill or oppose a bill. That's basically what we do. No special training, no special schooling. It's just talking to people, and it helps to know who you're talking to, given their history, their interests, and what have you.
Follow-up question. What role do you see for the council as you do your work, if there is any?
Yeah, appreciate that question. We are not the subject matter experts. We have the relationships, and then we rely upon staff and the council to educate us. So I think we have an astute, a fairly astute knowledge of the history, the legal arguments, certainly the arguments that have been made in the legislation. That I think we are okay on. Anything you're hearing on the ground, if you happen to be out at the mission and you see a local legislator that comes by, or a local public official, and you obtain feedback on that, that's crucial to us. If you happen to go to some sort of a social function and you talk with a legislator, whether it be a local legislator here in the area or somebody, and you're able to share that feedback, that's incredibly helpful. to build, as John has stated, build your case. All of those things are very helpful. We're in the business of information gathering, so that would be, I think, our request would be if there is any on-the-ground information, especially here in Fairway, that's helpful, that will help us make our case, we would appreciate that.
I did want to reiterate the comment that Stephen made. We came late to the game to try to stop bad legislation, or, in our opinion. The work that was done for all involved was incredible up to that point. It's a tough issue, and it requires a lot of education. And for the most part, you were doing it, and you were doing yeoman's work in an area, a field you didn't know much about, which is State House politics. So I'll reiterate, that was great work. It made our job a little bit easier up there, and the combined effort, I think, I'm very confident that we will be successful. Now, bills that will be introduced in 2025 will carry over to 2026. They're still alive and active and can be acted on. And that's why we have a 2-year proposal in front of you.
Kellyanne?
Thank you for coming and speaking with us. I'm Kelly Busick, Ward 1. I just have a question about when there's new elections and new people come into Topeka, do you find habitually that when turnover happens, new things crop up, or is it just the same thing and people are trying to get their issues heard? Is there anything that you've learned from that or over the years, and how can you tell us about it? Thank you.
Yeah, another good question. So already, just on the filings on June 3rd, there's already going to be a 20% turnover in the legislature. That's before any vote is cast. So we're anticipating somewhere around a 30% turnover. That means there'll be a lot of education of reintroducing ourselves to new people. Some of that work is being done as a group today. I think we met with 3 or 4 different candidates already. Every week we're meeting with more candidates to make sure they know who we are, we know who they are. Part of those conversations are, what are you hearing at the door? Because we think we know everything in Topeka, but it might be much different in Garden City or Shawnee, Kansas, or here in Fairway. And 2, what's important to you? And so what you'll find is when they come in as a newly elected legislator in January in 2025, they would have campaigned on certain things and made promises. And so that's what we'll be monitoring mostly, are the introduction of bills that are important to that legislator or group of legislators because they've campaigned on it. So there are a lot of new ideas that come forward. Now, 650 bills introduced, obviously not all of them received a hearing, not all of them advanced out of committee, but you never know. And that's what keeps us up at night and why I don't have brown hair anymore. So there'll be a lot of bills in year 1 of a biennium legislative process here, but that's a good question. There's always something new, and there'll be some carryovers.
Anyone else? Oh,
No.
great minds think alike. David?
I don't really have a question, but just a comment. I appreciate your efforts on the behalf of our city this year. This is, for me, kind of a mixed emotion thing, because I wish we didn't have to hire you all for this issue in particular and in general, but as your comment on the record about something in Topeka began with an SH. I didn't hear it quite well enough, but it's unfortunate that we have to go this way, but I'm afraid we do going forward, because you just don't know what will pop up, and I'm afraid our mission will be an ongoing issue that we have to deal with and continue to, as you say, educate and re-educate people about the true history of it. So thanks for your efforts there.
Okay. I assume no one's online still. Okay. We'll close public comment then, and I will ask for a vote, or a motion to vote. on this item?
Mayor, I move that we approve the agreement between the City of Fairway and Federico Durst for lobbying and governmental affairs services for the session 25 and 26 session.
Been moved and seconded that we approve this agreement. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Looking forward to it, I think. Thank you, guys. Item C, consider agreement between Johnson County and the City of Fairway for a stormwater system renewal project known as Suwannee Storm Sewer Replacement, 1 FA 2023 R485. Bill?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the standard interlocal agreement that we enter into with the county for reimbursement purposes. The interlocal agreement is for $84,000 and some change, of which we're eligible for $42,000 and some change in reimbursement. So we have to sign this if we want to get money back from the county.
Oh, I think we could do that.
I think we do too.
Any discussion by council? All right, I'm going to assume no one's online. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve the agreement between Johnson County and the City of Fairway for a stormwater system renewal project known as the Suwannee Storm Sewer Replacement 1-FA-2023-R-485.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this agreement with Johnson County. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. And last but not least, Nathan, would you like to introduce Jim for the presentation of our 2023 financial audit?
Sure. Thanks to Jim, we had a pretty, I would say, painless process this year with the department heads. Don't give me that look. But it went well. I think, you know, Jim's been around for quite a while, so I think we kind of all know each other and what we're looking for. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Jim for the presentation.
Thank you very much. Again, I'm Jim Shaw with Marr & Company.
Jim, can you move the mic down just a tad?
Yeah, I was trying to make a little bit of room here. There we go. Is that better?
Much.
Good, thank you. I'll try and keep this fairly brief and not as dry as it's inherently going to be, but I just always start out with a little comment about the audit process. Forgive me, I'm still getting used to new eyes, so I have to change everything from not being able to see out there to not being able to see here. Anyway, the audit process is, again, being familiar with it helps a lot, that we pretty much know most everything that goes on, but every year is different. We usually start the process by discussing what may have changed, look at the accounting records, see if we see anything unusual, large, and so forth to focus our efforts on. And from there we come up with our procedures to test those and make sure those major transactions are proper and appropriate. So that's me, but also that my comment is always, an audit's not 100%. We can't look at everything, or we'd be here for months and months, and you couldn't afford us. So, but anyway, we do look at the largest transactions. That's our goal, to hopefully find anything that could be wrong, that would be materially wrong. We will catch it based on what we do. We didn't have any of those kind of situations this year. There are always some large transactions and one-offs, so to speak, but with everybody's help, we were able to address those, I think, quite well. So the result of this, from our standpoint, is we issue an opinion on the adherence of your financial statements to the Governmental Accounting Standards Board principles that guide governments on how to account and report things. So that report's actually referred to as an unmodified report, but it is our highest level of assurance, basically saying we take no exceptions to the amounts that are presented and the information that's shown in the footnotes to the financial statements. While we have a 50-plus page document here, the first place I like to steer everyone is pages 3 to 9. I don't know if, Nathan, you don't have to follow along here, and I won't necessarily follow along, but proceeding or coming, from behind our audit opinion, it's referred to the management discussion and analysis. This is created by Joe with his efforts to pull all the information together in a format while it's condensed, these pages provide a lot of overall information for those who want to have the higher level review, I call it, highlights, discusses the nature of the financial statements. I'll touch on it here in a moment, but as a government, you present two different types of financial statements, so it explains what those are. There's the government-wide and the fund statements. And you'll be able to see some condensed information, comparative, which is, helpful. What's changed here and why? And those are all mentioned following the tables themselves. There's the balance sheet-like items. Net position is what that's referred to. The changes in activities, there's your revenue and expenditures. Again, while very condensed, pretty much by department and major type, you can see what's this year and last year. And also then, hopefully there are explanations. I know there are explanations that will explain why did this change dramatically enough. Most of those are in the favorable side, property taxes, sales taxes, and licenses and permits, substantially up. And hopefully I'll get this right. That's 421020, the building permits on the residential or the apartment developments up there on Shawnee Mission Parkway. So let's see, I'll refer everybody to that to get a good overview and to be able to see numerically some of the things that took place and changed throughout the course of the year. One of the most important things, there's one I have to point out, Nathan, when we get to the debt, and that's, I always say that's for the mayor. We talk about the percentage of debt to the assessed value, and it'll show up here in a minute, but Joe came up with it, but I think it's about 4.5%, which is pretty much, is as low as you'll ever find, I think, especially in this area. So we're getting there, but nope, I think you need to go just a little farther, and we don't have to. I just want to mention it's there, and then there it is, right there in that next to the last paragraph. You're 4.5%. Well, I learned, I catch on after a while. I know that's one of the mayor's favorite numbers, so I didn't want to let that get away. But beyond that, the statements themselves, I mentioned we've got two. Maybe we'll run to about page 10. I'll just take a moment and address those. You have two statements. This one called Statement of Net Position. It's basically kind of a governmental term for a balance sheet with your assets and liabilities and equity. This is what we call on the full accrual method, the government-wide. Includes data from all the funds are combined here. Plus we bring in some of these things you do not necessarily normally see in your fund statements, like your property and equipment. It gets depreciated like a business. Your long-term debt's on here, and some of the other accounting liabilities such as the pension and your post-employment benefit liability. We call it OPEB for short. But this is one presentation that's required to be shown. The theory is that it shows the city as a whole and almost in more of a business-like presentation. So this is a very interesting statement. This is the full accrual, more income statement, so to speak. You will never see one start with expenses and start subtracting revenues from it. But briefly, the intention here is to show that net expense revenue column. This is taking basically your department's functions also, but saying, what do they earn? What do these functions generate? That's your charges for services. That's going to be Parks and Rec, building permits and so forth. What did we recoup from those, the users of the services that those functions provide? We get some grants. We get operating grants. We get capital grants. Those are for property and equipment and so forth. Not unlike the cars that Bill just talked about. And so that total shows what's left. How do we cover that? Well, we have other, we call them general revenues, taxes, franchise fees, investment income, and so forth. So the end result was the accrual-based equity increased by 480 some odd thousand there, positive number. This section will look much more familiar. These are what we call the fund-based statements. The main difference there is that these don't include your assets and liabilities. This is a shorter-term perspective, very much like how you budget. So I personally tend to think that these are probably more meaningful. They're familiar. Everybody pretty much understands what cash, and we have a few receivables for sales taxes and so forth. That's just per the accounting rules. So following this will be there's the reconciliations I'll briefly mention. We have reconciliations there that show how do we get from the fund statements to the accrual-based statements. And then here's this will look not unlike what you'd see from Miller Management in your internal monthly statements. Taxes by major type, expenditures by function, really, which is department essentially, and then other sources and uses, transfers in and out. We had some insurance proceeds, sold some assets, and so forth. So there's the page that takes you from that statement to the governmental income type statement. And as was pointed out in the MD&A, the fund balances were all positive. All had positive increases in fund balance for the year. General fund maybe didn't increase as much as in the past. I think, Joe, we talked about that or discussed that a little bit. And speaking of storms, last year's storms unfortunately had a lot to do with that. So the last major piece to this is the notes to the financial statements. As I often comment, the farther back you go, the more detailed things become. This is more verbally with some tables to show by some of the more significant financial statement line items, what the details are. Use your capital assets, for example. Your long-term debt will show up here shortly. There it is. So for those that want the details and the underlying information, maybe in some of the accounting behind it, I suggest read the notes. About 4 pages of its pension, which I don't recommend, but anyway, I do always touch on that. The pension liability is pretty substantial, about $2.7 million, but that's actuarial. You don't owe anybody that right now. That's a very, very long-term outlook on it. So when we get past the notes, and I won't make Nathan hurry here necessarily, but we'll have the budget. There's some other supplemental schedules for budgetary comparisons and some pension tables for. There we go. We're getting there's the general fund budget. Everything generally very favorable there. Certainly well under budgets for all cases. Here's some of the pension information that's required to be presented. You get 2 sections of that. And here's your post-employment benefits, same thing. And then we should hit the rest. Well, okay. For financial reporting purposes, the smaller funds do all get grouped together into one section, and they come forward to the main statements that we've already looked at. So there's the non-major funds, we call it. Here come the rest of your budgets. And finally, I'll pause here for a moment. Does anybody have any questions about the financial statements, questions, comments, or anything I can help with? Okay.
Hey, Jim, thanks as always for all your work. I just, I'm on the edge of my chair every time as I'm getting through the OPEB and all that stuff. On our pension fund liabilities, what a difference a percent makes, higher or lower. Do you, your opinion doesn't opine on the reasonableness of the CAPER's assumption of 7% versus 6 or 8, does it? It just says that's what it is, and if it was different, here's where because if it goes to 6, our liability goes way up. If they get to 8, it goes way down.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it, what 1% does? Of course, it's not a large number as well, but we don't opine that per se. That's a great question, by the way, but we do have to step into the actuary's shoes, but we do have to ensure that their qualifications are reasonable, that our accounting guidance does give us some framework to look at how they develop their assumptions, the assumptions they've used, are they are they acceptable? So we do that. Now, do we get to the point of saying it should have been 6.5 or 7.5? No, that's not within our scope either. But again, the actuaries that Capers use are very good and very well respected. They know they've done this a lot for others as well. So we look at those factors certainly in taking into account whether, because we do have to live with it as well as do you. So, yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome. There is one other document I'll just touch on a little bit. Oh, did I? Then I missed it. Better put my glasses back on. But anyway, there's a document called Required Communications. There we go. I just want to touch briefly on that this is a standard document that we have to issue in every audit. There's some various topics in there. They're all required to be addressed. Generally, there's nothing, if we had any issues, one of them's disagreements with management and a few things like that. They're just, our auditing standards say, touch on these topics, report them. There's nothing of any concern or any such thing in there. So I wanted to mention journal entries for those that have a little accounting and understand the journal entry side of it. We make a lot. Some of them are pretty substantial, but part of our service is we convert your budget basis, financial statements that Miller prepares, to the fund-based levels that we have to report on, and then take it through to those full accrual statements too. So that's what, most of those entries are just to do that very thing. So they're not an indication of any improper accounting or poor accounting or whatever. So now I will conclude here for you, but again, if there are other questions, I think at this point, we'll then, hopefully we're done and ready to approve, and we'll get this to Nathan, so.
We do need to have council
Yeah.
accept.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it
It's
very
always-
much.
always said it's
And I
one-
actually looked at those entries.
Well,
Well, in past years, I've always had to ask for them, so I'm glad to see that they're included.
well, that's something that they've kind of pushed us into that way. We could do it verbally, but then,
Yeah.
I think
No,
you are a little bit of an exception, Mayor, because of your
Well,
background, and you
yeah, I
know
know.
exactly what those are, but,
I know.
so I'm glad you do look, so. But anyway, other than, beyond that, I think then we can
Okay.
proceed with finishing up. And again, thanks everyone. This, my closing comments are always, the audit's a two-way process. And we
very
do our
much so.
work, but it's a lot of work on the staff.
Yeah.
And I particularly want to mention Abby again. This is Abby's first time, and she did a tremendous job. She's like she'd been doing it all her career. So very, very
Thank you for
impressed.
sharing that.
And I've always
Yes.
enjoyed Abby. Never worked with her to this level, but again, I think I want everybody to understand that she really, really picked it up and took over for Kim and did a great job. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I want to take a moment to thank Nathan. And I know that a considerable number of the staff, just varying amounts, Abby mostly, but I'm sure there were questions to other departments. Yep.
Nobody's untouched by it.
Yeah, I know. No one is ever untouched by an audit.
Chief's laughing, expecting you got an extra dose.
His favorite thing to do. Yeah. Thank you all, and a special thank you to Councilmember Joe Levin. We appreciate your participation in helping to prepare the MD&A.
It's educational.
Yes, it is educational. And to council, I'm not going to ask you to read the entire audit, but do look at the MD&A. Those pages are very, very important, and will give you a good synopsis of page 3 through 9, I think it is. It will give you some very, very good insight to the city and help when talking to residents about the financial condition of the city. Okay. Pardon?
It's generally very positive.
Oh, yes, it is, very. Okay, is there a motion for acceptance of the audit?
Mayor, Joseph Levin, Ward 3. I guess the right term would be, I move that we accept the audit report.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we accept the 2023 financial audit. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Okay, Jim, thank you for coming tonight. You can stay if you want. We're almost finished. Governing body comment next. During this time, members of the governing body will be given the opportunity to speak about matters related to the city. No formal action will be taken during this time. Does anyone have anything they want to comment on tonight? Kelly?
Kelly Busick, Ward 1. I want to thank Public Works and Bill and your staff for working so hard to pick up all the storm detritus. I know you guys did several rounds, and I'm very appreciative, and the citizens have remarked so, and they thank you very much. And then I'd like to thank Bryce for updating us on the Shawnee Indian Mission, the cemetery, and how we're going to be working with the Boy Scouts and how that's moving forward. And it's really very much appreciated from all the citizens. Thank you.
Anyone else? David?
Bill, I appreciate the work on 61st Terrace, since I live, that's one of my streets at Fairway they live on, and especially you're keeping tabs on it from start to finish, because the sod they put in at the island, it was dead from the start, but I'm glad you caught that and they got that replaced. It looks a lot better.
A blind man could tell that was not very good sod. It was atrocious, to say the least.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is the easy, hard part, if that makes sense. The construction is where the rubber meets the road. When you excavate, you always find something that, no matter the best laid plans, you will always find something buried somewhere that someone fixed on a Friday afternoon before they got off work. So those are the hard hurdles that you don't see, and it all comes down to a $5 piece of grass at the end of it on whether a project is successful or not. So this is the easy, hard part, and this is the one that probably takes the initial investment of when people's yards get dug in is usually the initial, upsetness, but this is a lot of hand-holding at this stage of the game.
Jerry?
We're passing out thank yous. A special thank you to Bryce for the smooth opening of the Fairway Pool. I was so surprised to see him working on the front lines, handing out badges. I mean, just right in the middle of it. So thanks for a smooth opening. Looking forward to the summer.
Okay. Is there public comment? I assume we're still, just us? Okay, we'll close public comment. And is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you, guys.